Read all about it. Journalism wins a Preakness for the ages. Let's discuss. Hi, everyone. Matthew DeSantis here, along with my NYRA Bets colleague, Kaylie Shapiro. And wow, what did we just witness? Journalism winning the 150th Preakness Stakes, the last one at the original old Hilltop before they remake and rebuild Pimlico, and truly one that harkens back to the Fleet Alex victory from 20 years ago when he goes to his knees because Scrappy T blew the turn. And this time it's goal-oriented, jumping in a path, a chain reaction of slamming, and Clever again gets hit up against the rail and everything. An insane race. At the end of the day, it is journalism with a superhuman effort to get the win. Kaylie, your thoughts, your reactions.
That was just an insane race. I mean, both of us were alive to journalism in the last leg of our tickets. And we were like, oh, wow, we feel super safe. And then, I mean, we were holding our breath the entire race. I can't get over.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm still processing just how that horse recovered from how severely he was boxed in and bumped on the rail.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that was really concerning. I'm really happy that all the horses were good. That's how concerning it was. I was just making sure he was good after that. And then when he came flying, he could have went around again after that. That's how he looked. It was, and Gosger, obviously, he ran a huge race. He had an amazing trip. He had a perfect trip, but that horse still ran huge in just his third or fourth start.
No, it was impressive. We're going to get to Gosger and everything else, but listen, the headline is journalism. Runs back on 2 weeks rest after a runner-up finish in the Kentucky Derby. I mean, in this way, very similar to a Fleet Alex, right? A Fleet Alex finished third in the Kentucky Derby, comes back and then wins the Preakness very memorably. Next up, the Belmont Stakes at Saratoga. Fleet Alex, of course, runs away with the Belmont, if you remember that third leg of the Triple Crown back 20 years ago in 2005. But, I mean, wow. Journalism, it was not the easiest trip the whole way around either because he wanted to be more forward, and American Promise kind of held his position, and Umberto Rispoli was kind of forced to take a little further back that you could tell he wanted to, and then he starts asking him around the turn, or not even around the turn, on the backstretch, he's asking him all ready to go, and then you and I both spotted something where at one point it looks like Rispoli's going to drift out and try to go wide, and he kind of changes his mind.
It seemed like he was just making his mind up obviously, just like trying to figure out if he had a spot, somewhere on the rail, or if he was going to go on the outside of all of them. I was pretty surprised to see that he didn't go to the outside, because that's how the horse, ran so well in the Derby as well, that that distance is that horse's friend. So the fact that, that horse was boxed in the way that he was and knocked into it, that was just incredible. And also when you think about it, the other closer in the race, Sandman, was literally moving right next to journalism, like you had pointed out. And then when we watch the replay, it's insane to see how much journalism beat him by with the trip he had.
No, that was the thing, is journalism has his momentum stopped basically because of the collision. Clever again starting to back up, and Umberto's trying to get journalism through a pretty tight spot. And Flavian is, elbowing him, and Umberto's elbowing back, and they're trying to hold their positions. Journalism's trying to get through a tight spot, and then goal-oriented just kind of freaks out a little bit and just kind of hops over and causes this chain reaction. And thank God Clever again's okay, because he really got the worst of it, because he got banged up against the rail and really had to check up and was just kind of jogged home at that point under Jose Ortiz. But, what's interesting is you're right. At that point, Sandman's got all the momentum on the outside, and journalism's momentum has been stopped. He has to basically restart, and they're on even terms. And you know who the best closer is now. I don't want to hear any of those. Oh, Sandman's a great closer. Okay, that's funny. Maybe if Cornucopian was in the race and they were running, 44-2 to the opening half mile, then he could get it again. But listen, journalism showed not only is he the best closer, he might be the best horse. I mean, that was an incredible effort. And to just track down Gosger. And I didn't think he was going to get there until about the last half furlong, maybe around the 16th pole. I go, oh my God, he's really starting to close.
It was, I mean, when you really think about it, because you just brought up a point that even I'm going to admit, I mean, it's really up in the air. Who's after that? Who's better, sovereignty or journalism? It's really up in the air. If you think about it, the track on Derby Day was a disaster. And I mean, he just put in a performance that would have won the Derby. So if you think
yeah.
about it,
yeah.
it's pretty interesting to wonder if those two meet in the Belmont, what's going to go down. Because what we saw today was for sure a fight, and that was a horse race.
That was a horse race, and that was a horse that listen. And one of the things I wanted to bring up too is if you watch the NBC coverage, obviously you'll see the overhead shot on the back stretch, and that's really where you start to see this idea that Rispoli is maybe angling out wide. This is where I like those drone shots, because on the backstretch, you start to see him kind of drift out a path or two, and you go, okay, he's going to start going wide. And then all of a sudden he dives back in. So to your point, he's trying to figure out in the moment, am I going outside? Am I going inside? What am I going to do? And you've ridden horses far more than I ever have. But one of the things is when you start giving horses mixed messages, hey, we're going to go outside. Okay, now we're going to go inside. Oh, now hold up, stop. Okay, now we got to go. Horses a lot of times will just shut down when you start doing that.
That's what was incredible to me, because I mean, obviously he's a great jockey. He got the job done.
Obviously, yeah.
But you can say he did give him a little bit of a hesitant signals and indecisiveness. Yeah. I mean, the horse definitely felt that. Did not matter for him.
No,
he was winning no matter what. The horse had his mind made up. So I mean, that was just one special horse you take into consideration, what we just talked about with the ride, as well as just, I mean, getting banged as hard as he did finish up like that. He almost just found another gear at the end is what it looked like. Because we both got a little bit nervous when we saw him traveling like that along the backside. So
when Rispoli was already kind of nudging him along and really asking him on the backside. I mean, you never see a horse asked for that sustained of a run for basically 4 furlongs at that point being asked. But hey, that's where what we were talking about before the race, sired by Curlin, a thrilling victory for Curlin back in 2007, a thrilling victory for his son now in 2025. But that's where the pedigree of Curlin kind of, it shows up because they can run all day. And that was pretty obvious. And, maybe we can transition, talk a little bit about Gosger.
Yeah.
Who you had in your exacta for the second straight Triple Crown race in a row. You nailed the exacta straight. So congrats to you.
Thanks.
And you've been on that for weeks, by the way. Some people just posted 20 minutes before the race. She's been on it for about a week and a half talking about Gosger. And you're right. He got the perfect trip and he inherited the perfect situation because it looked like it was a disaster behind him. And suddenly he's 8 lengths clear of the field, it almost looked like.
Which I kind of imagined because he had the outside post that I thought, he has good enough speed that he's going to sit really close, but he's going to have a clean trip. That's really all I was hoping for that horse.
Yeah.
And he really stepped up to the plate. That was a huge improvement from him.
Yeah.
I mean, he was obviously pretty impressive in the Lexington.
Yeah.
What did he get, an 88?
87, 88. Yeah.
And he, similar to what he ran when he broke his maiden.
Yeah.
So, now the horse clearly took a huge step up, and it's pretty exciting to think of what we could see from him throughout the rest of the year as well. And then I guess one of the other main players in here was River Thames. And, I think obviously that horse got himself involved in the race, and
he was parked wide. You pointed out.
Which was great, but he traveled wide the entire time. And for a horse that it was already a bit up in the air, if he could get that distance effectively, I mean, that was just not the best case scenario. I think that if he hadn't traveled so wide, he would have ran a bit better.
He could have run a little bit better, maybe afforded him a placing. But listen, you and I, before we got started, I was being I tend to be a smart aleck when we watch these races or when we get ready for them. And I was going through and I go, Nyquist, Curlin, Tappet, McLean's music. One of these things is not like the other. Listen, River Thames is a very nice horse. He is going to win multiple graded stakes races, I would imagine, in his career. I feel pretty confident. He's going to do it at a mile. He's not going to do it at a mile and 3/16. I'll tell you that.
I think with the
mile and a 16th, maybe you can get 2 turns, but he's ultimately, I think, a miler. I think at his best,
maybe.
And listen, he's a nice horse, but McLean's music's only going to get you so far.
Cloud Computing did win the Preakness, but I mean, this horse just
and how are his sons doing, by the way?
This horse just did not have a trip that
when you're parked pretty wide the whole way around, it's just not going to work. And so, but Gosger, I think, ran a huge race. Luis Saez there, put him in the perfect spot. I think he was a horse I had him third, you had him second, obviously. He was a horse that I think we both thought was going to take a big step forward in the Lexington, from that Lexington, I should say. Again, a pedigree that we both loved. Where Nyquist up top out of a Tappet mare. It's like, again, the mile and 3/16 is not going to be a problem at all for that horse. So I just I was kind of baffled when I saw everybody else's picks on the NYRA team. Nobody was listening to us, apparently. I don't know. Maybe we got to get some of the NYRA people to listen to NYRA Bets.
He was a really big long shot. He did.
Well, God forbid we try to get a price every once in a while.
He did need to take a big step up, but it's good to see that he did. I mean, what a group that we're gonna have. I mean,
I agree.
The Belmont. I can't wait already.
Well, that's the exciting thing is obviously seeing what's going to come up with the Belmont Stakes, because now you have Sovereignty already up in Saratoga with Belmont, and now it looks like obviously journalism, if it comes out of the race clean, we'll see how things go tomorrow, but obviously hoping to see him go to the Belmont Stakes as well. And then by the way, you have Baeza out in California who's going to be shipping back across. And you got the top 3 from the Derby, the Preakness winner, and now they're all facing off against each other. I wouldn't even be shocked if Brendan Walsh ran a horse like Gosger back, potentially. I mean, there was very little that he did wrong in that race, as long as he comes out of it clean. And like I said, the pedigree would suggest he can handle it. You have a horse like Chad Brown's horse, Hill Road, who obviously won, just recently. And Jamie Osborne even said, hey, Heart of Honor is going to go to Belmont as well. I don't know after that performance if he's still going to do it, but maybe.
It's a party.
It's a party. Why not? Hey, you already have the horse over here in America. Might as well stick around for a couple of races.
It is interesting to think of, because, I mean, now you're going to have such strong closers and Sovereignty, journalism, and you add Hill Road.
Yeah, that's true.
Well, and Hill Road's going to get pace.
Yeah.
I mean, it's pretty interesting.
Yeah, but the question is, do they get, where does the pace come from? Does Baeza, does Gosger, where's the front runner? And that's the thing, is when you have so many closers, then you start to wonder where it comes. And that's where journalism, I think, does have the advantage over those others, because you could tell it earlier date. He wants to be closer to the pace than he actually ends up being a lot of times. And he's faster than you think he is, and he can get up there. And if there's not any other significant speed in that Belmont, I could easily see him sitting a second or third position.
That's a great point.
And then he's got the jump on everybody. Yeah. And that horse, geez, 2 weeks. I mean, but listen, we've seen this before. I mentioned Fleet Alex. Obviously, that's the memory that comes back because of the trouble and everything like that. But you also think of a horse like Smarty Jones. You think of a horse like Funny Side, horses that move forward off 2 weeks rest. So horses can do it. We don't need to change the Triple Crown. Everybody can pump the brakes about that. And by the way, we should give credit to a horse that I was not particularly high on. I don't think you were particularly on. Sandman, well, I don't, I kind of mocked the fact that, he's not the best closer. He finished third. And that's better than I thought he was going to do on a speed favoring track.
And I think he's still improving.
Of course, he's a tappet. Of course he is. Yeah.
So, I mean, that horse, I'm not ruling him out of the picture. I mean, for the rest of the year, do I think that he's on the same level as the other, Sovereignty and journalism right now? No, but based on what we've seen so far, that horse sat last most of the way, took all the kickback in his face. You could see him like this with this, that horse really, I mean, he ran well to pick up third, although not strong of a closer as journalism. He did show up.
Yeah, no, he did. He did show up. And again, but you could even tell he was still weaving a little bit in the stretch. He still is immature. He's a tappet. It's just, they get better as they get older. They get better as they mature a little bit more. He gets overbet because of the connections and because of, the Metallica and Griffin Johnson and all that stuff, which is fine. But it's just from a betting standpoint, he tends to not be the best value a lot of times in the race. And so it looks like he'd probably be a horse that should, like the 1.25 miles, might go and end up at the Belmont as well. And again, now another closer you're adding to the mix. So, the big picture takeaway was, the Preakness obviously is just journalism. Wow. Putting a stamp on it. And I can't help but think that kind of overshadows Sovereignty a little bit, because in some ways it's all exactly the way in which it was won.
It was insane. I mean, I think that I'm going to watch the replay tomorrow and cry that, the way that horse fought his way out.
Yeah.
That's a fighter. And when you talk about a mile and a mile and a quarter as well up at Belmont, I mean, obviously in Saratoga, I mean, when you talk about all these closers and like you said, journalism is going to sit a bit closer. I think he really does. He's the big standout. I love Sovereignty. I still believe he's, probably just as good, if not better. I don't know. It's hard to really rank them like that. But all I know is that what journalism did today was really just mind blowing.
I think the thing that might be interesting, and I don't know if you'd agree with this or not, because I know you're a big Sovereignty fan. Sovereignty was the right pick for the Derby. That doesn't necessarily mean he's the best horse out of this 3-year-old crop, but we both talked about how crazy the pace was going to be in the Derby and how you kind of wanted to make a move from the back. Junior gave it an amazing ride. on him that day. And I want to get back to something Junior said earlier, which I think we both chuckled a little bit at. But, it was an amazing ride. But I think journalism's got that versatility that Sovereignty hasn't shown yet. To be able to sit a couple different types of trips, to put himself in a position where he's not pace dependent, where he can and I know he did it against River Thames and some of these other lesser horses, but when we're talking about competing in the grade ones, in the Jim Dandy, in the Travers later this summer, those are going to be shorter fields. They're not going to be as crazy of pace. Can you still close and come from off the pace, or does it favor horses that are a little bit more versatile, a little bit more, maneuverable, a little bit more, hey, we can show some speed and get up into a third or fourth position. We're not coming from seventh or eighth all the time. And it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out. And that's the beauty of it. We're going to see how it plays out.
Exactly. It's going to be so exciting to obviously cover all the buildup leading up to the Belmont with all of these contenders that we have. There's just so much to dive into.
I got so much to write tonight.
It's going to be pretty insane, but when you talk about Sovereignty versus journalism, maybe, who's the better of the two, it's really, like you said, going to come down to who shows up, the pace, how they draw. But like you said, the point that you made about, journalism having an advantage because he can sit a little bit closer. It's a really great point. And also, as Sovereignty has, went up against maybe pace dynamics that were up against him in certain situations, but we've never, and I love Sovereignty, he's my number one, but we've never seen him overcome adversity like that. It's just overcame.
No, I mean, the last time, honestly, you rarely see horses overcome that level of adversity. The other very famous one that comes to mind is Yopon getting savaged by Firenze Fire and then fighting on to win up at Saratoga a few years ago. And so, yes, that level, I mean, this might sound like hyperbole, but if you watch that, when you watch that collision at the top of the stretch, 99 times out of 100, that horse never ends up winning that race. And for him not only just to win, but just to fight back and make a run at it, let alone win it, was just breathtaking. And yes, there was also some financial gain for both of us. Yeah. You gave out the pick 6, I gave out the pick 5. So, it's going to be a good day for us and NYRA Bets tonight and tomorrow. But listen, it was absolutely thrilling to see. It sets up a fantastic Belmont Stakes. I can't wait. Yeah, and how amazing for the trainer, Mike McCarthy. Obviously, watching him after the race, very special, as well as Umberto Rispoli. Just amazing. I love watching after the race. Yeah. It's just amazing. But just obviously very happy for connections. So great. Absolutely. Very happy. And by the way, the thing I wanted to mention earlier was very funny. Junior Alvarado won the dinner party, the race before the Preakness, and Donna Barton Brothers goes up and says, asks Junior on horseback after he wins with Fort Washington in that dinner party. And she goes, now you don't have a mount. Who would you want to ride if you could ride anybody? Journalism. No hesitation from Junior. He knows who his number one competitor is when he gets back on board Sovereignty. And that certainly was validated today. Huge credit to Gosger. Brendan Walsh, those connections there. That was a huge effort from a horse, like you said, had to step up and did. Big effort, obviously, from Sandman to run on. And again, against the speed favoring track, I thought it was a fast pace. It wasn't an insane pace. And so I thought he ran really well. I do wonder if anyone has made up ground like that. Not really, because you think about the 2-turn races that were run today. Though Crudo wins the Sir Barton gate to wire fashion, and then Baffert's horse in race 3, the maiden Varney, I think was just tracking off the pace and won that race going away. So nobody really was making up significant ground on the dirt. So the fact that journalism and Sandman were able to do it certainly speaks well to both of them. And like I said, we're probably going to see both of them up at Saratoga for the Belmont Stakes, along with Sovereignty. Like I said, Baeza coming in. You have Hill Road. You have a lot of other very exciting horses. So going to be a lot of fun. We got to catch our breath. But Kaylie, you got to catch some tickets too. Yeah. You might need to have a private security guard with your payouts for that pick 6 as you leave here. Yeah, maybe. I don't know. So listen, folks, thanks so much for tuning in to this episode of NYRA Bets as we recapped what was truly one of the Preaknesses for the ages. 150. They're not going to forget this anytime soon. They'll be talking about it for the next 150 years. So thanks so much for tuning in. Make sure to press that like and subscribe button on NYRA Bets YouTube. Today, we're going to have a load of content for you for Belmont Stakes at Saratoga, but we also got you covered for all the races in between now and that first Saturday in June. For Kaylie Shapiro, who's a little bit richer than Matthew DeSantis, want to remind you to
we both hit.
We did both hit. No, we did both hit. But want to hope that you all had a safe and profitable Preakness Day. And reminding you, friends, is now post time.